Hello, thank you so much for joining us. And of course, it's still your current affairs program, TMI, coming to you live from the City of Excellence, Lagos State. And my name is Joshua Okata. Today, we'll be talking about the feud between Senator Natasha Akpoti and the Senate President, Godswill Akpabio. Before long, you would have been aware that there's been this back and forth coming from both persons. One party saying that she's accusing the president of sexual harassment, while on the other hand, the Senate President, Godswill Akpabio's wife, has already, filed a lawsuit to the tune of 250 billion naira, challenging Senator Natasha of accusing the husband wrongfully, which of course is a defamation of character, and of course assassinating the family's reputation that has been long built. All of these will be making our discussion this morning, and of course I have two guests joining me right here on the show, but virtually. And I have Mr. Matthew Oluko, who is a social affairs analyst, and of course Mr. Alester Wilcott. He is a public affairs analyst. Good morning, and thank you, gentlemen, for joining us on the show. Well, Mr. Matthew Oluko, if you're there, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Thank you very much. And of course, Mr. Alexi Wilcott, good morning, and thank you so much for joining us.
Good morning. Good morning. Thanks for having me.
All right, now let's go into our discussion proper. We have a lawsuit to the tune of 250 billion naira by Mrs. What's the name again? Mrs. Akpabio, rather, pardon me. And that lawsuit was filed against Natasha. Now, let me get your feed, especially from the angle of a social aspect. What do you think about someone accusing another of sexual harassment? That question goes to you, Mr. Matthew Oluko.
Once again, thank you for having me.
You're welcome.
I think at this point, we have to be careful because the issue under contention is already a subject of litigation because the way it is, so that we don't commit contempt. But however, I think the onus lie on who is alleging to prove, because the way it stands, allegations have been made. I understand that Senator Natasha herself has come out clearly to say yes, that she has evidence to prove her case, and even the husband came on the other side to say the wife confided in him. The way it stands, it is no longer an issue of in the court of public opinion. It has already the attention has been shifted to the court. So I think we have to wait and see how it pans out in court. However, this is a very serious issue that the Senate President himself needs to come out and defend himself, just as Senator Natasha made it clear that the allegation is against the senator and that the wife should stay away from it. However, I look at it, the point is that the case is already in court.
All right, now let's go to Mr. Alexa. There are some level of reactions from the public stating that all of these disagreements started when Mrs. Natasha's seat was changed without her knowledge. What is your take as regards having a seat of a senator changed without her knowledge, and does it in any way affect her participation in the Harlow chambers?
Yeah, thank you for having me.
You're welcome.
I have never been a senator, and I have not entered the Senate chambers. Neither do I know how their seat arrangement is conducted. Well, when I read from what they have said that there is a part of the standing rule is that the Senate President is one that allocates seats, and at every point in time that their seats can be changed because of certain arrangements. I also heard from a senator, the senator representing Abuja, that is the Senator Kingibe, that her own seat has been changed almost 4 times. So I don't think the changing of seats has it's an issue as far as the Senate is concerned or the National Assembly is concerned. You allocated a seat, and I think it is within the prerogative of the Senate president to allocate seat to senators. So you allocated a seat, and if you have a problem with that, you don't make it a public thing. You see, for me, what I saw in this whole thing is there is too much childishness, unbecoming of honorable members. And I'll be very, very clear. I mean, Natasha Akpoti has had too many scandals in the Senate since she joined the Senate about some months ago. I think she joined 6 months later because of she came through the courts. The first problem was the issue of the shouting with the Senate president. When the Senate president said it's not a nightclub. This is the same Senator Natasha. Then now, over seat arrangement. Then it is same Senator Natasha. Then something must be wrong with the two gentlemen. You know, maybe you didn't ask me about the fact. I mean, what I feel about the whole thing. But let me just leave it at the issue of the Senate. I think it is the duty of the Senate president. Like I have read, like I said, I've not been a senator, and I've not even entered the chambers. I pray one day I'll be invited for a confirmation hearing in the Senate chambers. And but I know that they have their rules, and anybody who is agree with the rules do not create a public nuisance or bring our institution to ridicule. Most time, maybe I believe that the senators or national assembly members do not understand the importance and the higher office or high. I mean the high status of their office. That's why if you find that sometimes some of these needless things has to come to the fore, and it's for me sad and unfortunate.
Okay, so while I respond to your submission, it is not an issue for an individual to have his seat changed. But then, don't you think, as people would say, that she needs to be carried along so as not to create an embarrassing situation where she starts looking for her position where she sat previously? Don't you think that is also very important?
Not I've not known what the Senate rules are or how they operate or the modus operandi. Yes, naturally, if you are transferring someone, there should be a formal communication to that individual that okay, from tomorrow you are moving to that. That is on the natural grounds. Now, when the seats were changed, I do not know the circumstances under which the seats were changed. But you see, the seat is not an office. So the seat, as far as the seat is concerned, you are not having files, you are not having typewriters, you are not having laptops attached to the seat. It is just where you sit for plenary. So I don't think if you come in to the chambers in the day and you are told either by the sergeant at arm or by that look, madam, sorry, that seat you sat yesterday has been allocated to another person. Now this is your new seat. I don't think that's I in all honesty, and I must maintain in all honesty and all sensibility, I don't think that will generate a public outcry.
Now, this
As
is
to where you
another
are
side.
sitting. Now,
Okay, so now this is
hold on. If
another.
you go to that seat, you could have gone to that seat, and then from that seat, you now complain, Mr. Senate President. Yesterday I was sitting in seat 72. Today I'm asked to sit in seat 78. I think it's not a fair thing. When next you want to change seat, Mr. President, can you please give us advice so we don't get embarrassed? That is a sensible and ideal way to handle situations. Except there is more, like we are seeing now, between the two people, between the two gladiators in this matter.
Okay, so now let me get your last take before I switch to my guest. But I'll definitely have some takes from you later on the show. Now, she is saying that regardless of the fact that she has been shifted away from where she sat previously, sometimes it's difficult to have a proper representation of your constituency when you're taken almost at the right back end of the venue. So what do you think about that?
So if the people of Kogi East, I mean, is it Kogi East or Kogi East
You're right.
must get
Kogi
adequate
Central.
representation for not sitting at that end. What of the person from Rivers West, South, Rivers West, where I come from? If that person was allocated that seat, it means she will not get a decent representation. Or if the person from Akwa Ibom South or Akwa Ibom Southeast, I don't know. I mean, or okay, let me take Lagos East, where I reside. I mean, if it's allocated that seat, You mean I will not get proper representation? I think these things are not called for. And even when, remember, on that day, Senator Bamoro, which is leader of the minority, approached Natasha and said, "Can you please move to that seat in compliance with our Senate rule?" But unfortunately, being the beauty queen that she is, the almighty Natasha, she wouldn't have that, and then she felt she needed to disrupt the Senate. For me, I see it as childish. I see it as unnecessary. I see it as something that shouldn't have been. I mean, shouldn't have been.
All right.
And today look at today look at where we are. Sex scandal. Come on, are we serious people?
Okay, now let me take my attention now to Mr. Matthew Luko. Now let's talk about the issue of women inclusion, especially when it comes to public offices. As it stands right about now, at the very high level representation when it comes to the legislature in the red chambers, we have about 4 females. What's your take on that when it comes to women inclusion? And of course, the protection of their fundamental rights as regards their freeness to be able to operate in such a space.
To be quite honest with you, I would say that for me, that number is grossly inadequate. However, I think there is no law or regulating the number of senators we should have in our red chamber. But I think if you have any maybe female politician who is aspiring to be a senator, there should not be room for discrimination. But permit me to dwell on the issues that borders on what transpired at talking about the plenary that day, because there is an issue the woman raised talking about Natasha. With your permission, can I discuss that?
Go ahead, please.
Okay, because she was specifically cited on that 10. And according to her, on that 10, going by the rule of the city, have overriding factor over every other consideration. She acknowledged that the Senate president have right to reallocate and allocate seats to any senator. However, she said that once a senator cites on that 10, she is supposed to be listened to. That the best the Senate president could have done is having listened to her, that the Senate president could have used his discretion to rule her out of order. And that according to her, that didn't happen. So I think because she's a lawyer, she latched on her rights based on that order 10. I think that is missing in all of this conversation.
Okay.
Now going back to your initial question, I feel that actually women are not getting enough in our democracy. That may not be the reason may not be far-fetched, because we understand that the nature of Nigerian democracy is not too rosy, and the competition that happens, whether in terms of justice for position, with fiscal strength and all that, so they can hardly compete with their male counterparts. I think what we should do at this point is we should have some laws to specifically give them some advantage in terms of you will have XY number of women in the red chamber and in the green chamber. If you do that, I think for me, it will go a long way in bringing more women to the National Assembly.
All right, now let's talk about the issue of being accused, in a crime called sexual harassment. While we are not going to delve into the lawsuit proper because it's a court case right about now, so we don't sound prejudicial, I want to get your take on this. There is a popular saying that when you do something or being caught doing something once, it might just be a mistake. If it becomes a second attempt, it might be a coincidence. When it becomes a third, it becomes a pattern. Have that at the back of your mind. The Senate president has been accused of being alleged to have been involved in sexual harassment, which was at a time where a lady slapped him, probably between 2020, if I'm not wrong. Now, what is your take as regards this current issue now that has just propped up? Looking at it from a moral point of view, While the investigation into such is being, carried on, what do you think the Senate President should do voluntarily, considering the fact that this is a very huge allegation on his name?
To start with, I think it is irrespective of the number of times one is accused or alleged to have committed a crime. As long as the person has not been prosecuted and convicted, the person is not guilty of it. And to that extent, the Senate President has not been tried on any of these issues, and he has not been found wanting. So it is still in the realm of of allegation. And in the legal jurisprudence here in Nigeria, one is innocent until proven otherwise by a court of competent jurisdiction. So even if you are putting him on trial, as long as he's not convicted, you cannot use that to maybe draw an inference. Having said that, it is a different ball game as in what is played out in the court of public opinion and what we actually play out in the record. But the point here is, like I said earlier on, he who alleged has responsibility to prove. I understand that Senator Natasha, through his lawyer, have said that they have some level of evidence, but the way it stands, we allow them to ventilate their opinion and bring their evidence before the court. We cannot consider ourselves into a court and pass judgment. And I can see different group interests coming from different angles, protest for and against, but that is not unexpected because we understand that politics and life is interest oriented. But however, the ultimate thing is that the woman talking about Senator Natasha have a burden of truth to convince the country, the court, and everybody, of course, that the allegation is actually right.
All right, now let's go to Mr. Alexa. There is this opinion that women are not safe, especially when it comes to their workplace, whether in private sector or in public sector. What do you think we can do right about now at the legislature to be able to protect the rights of women, considering the fact that they are the most hit or the most victim when it comes to violation or abuse of their rights? Mr. Alexi, are you there? All right, let's go to Mr. Matthew Oloko. What's your take on that, considering the fact that women sometimes complain about being abused or violated for the purpose of being women, especially when they are found in their workplace? Go ahead, Mr. Matthew.
Okay, all right. The point here is, I think what should be done is someone who, of course, knows that she have a case to make, from every point should be gathering evidence. Because talking about somebody of that status, Senator Natasha, she should know the implication of alleging without evidence. I'm not saying she doesn't have evidence anyway. What I'm trying to say is, once you notice that there is harassment, I think the first thing to do is to diplomatically start gathering your evidence for a particular day like this when you, of course, want to see the beast. Because otherwise, if after all we are hearing, she's not able to provide evidence, I think they will not take any woman serious when issues of this nature comes up. But if we already have laws that meant to protect women, I think another thing is we should have some constitutional provisions that mandate offices, because this is not just the Citizen Constitutional Assembly talking about accusation of sexual harassment. That will mandate offices, whether in our special institutions and others, that you must install closed circuit television, talking about CCTV, in your offices. And anytime you are in your duty post and such is not, the camera is not on, the person should answer query. And the same thing should be even applicable to our personnel who are talking about security agencies. They should have body camera when they are going about their daily operations. Because that's a better way of getting feedback of what is happening in the field and putting people on check to make sure that they do the right thing.
Thank you very much, Mr. Matthew. Now let me go to Mr. Alexta. Are you there, Mr. Alexta? All right, now my question to you would be, you've heard the response from Mr. Matthew that legislation should be put in place, especially when it comes to installing closed circuit cameras that will be able to checkmate some of the excesses that goes on in the public space, for instance, in the legislature. Now, what is your take as regards that?
Well, for me, you don't need to legislate people's conduct into the point that you begin to trivialize issues. Women are their own problem, as far as I'm concerned. Look, women are their own problem. It's only when a woman does not want an advance from a man that he goes ahead to shout sexual harassment. What are the ones that willingly give themselves to the men to be abused for favors? What of the ones that, do you know how many women goes out to look for a job just with the intention of enticing the man, either contract, job, or anything? So when it goes the other way around, then we all shout and cry. But when it is them that are perpetrating it, we don't. I don't see. You cannot legislate people's conduct. And let me just take this Senator Natasha's story. Remember when the issue of the nightclub issue on the Senate took place, there was a shouting match between the two of them. And at the end of the day, after a few days, Akpabio apologized in the floor of the Senate. Now, you still follow Akpabio to his house. See, sometimes let us pierce through some of these things. You knew this man and you are not having it easy. You followed him to his house, to his country home, according to you, in Uyo, where he was taking you around his house and his room.
Mind you, he went along with the husband, not just her alone. So it's not just her alone. Let's just state facts here.
No, I know. Look, I'm coming there.
But because you're making it look like he went there alone with her. That's what I'm saying.
No, hold on now. Hold on. Why would you even have attended that function? Can't you declare the function? I understand that the husband and Akpabio has been friends. So must you attend every, you know, you and Akpabio, you are not in the same, in a good mood with each other. Maybe you've had brush in the past. And then you still followed him to the point that he left, every other guest was left. Only you and your husband was being taken around the room from room to room. That is one. Two, there was an emotion you wanted to move. You couldn't move the motion. You still went to Akpabio's office to ask for the favor of moving the motion. There are so many things that looks childish to me. Look, if you know he likes women, if you know that he has done it once in his house, you didn't tell your husband though. According to her, you didn't even tell your husband what happened. Even after your husband met you in the bedroom and said, "Tell me what happened," you say you did not. You now went to his office where he was telling you that you should make him happy. Come on, are you not the one presenting yourself to be abused? Even if it occur. So a women, as far as I'm concerned, women should know where to draw the line. You don't want a thing, then don't go near it. You've seen what they call the red flag. You are still trying to maneuver your way around the red flag. You see, me as a man, there are things, the moment something gets to a certain level, I abstain from it.
All right, now let's talk about
that is common sense.
Let's talk about punitive measures.
I'm not saying Natasha don't have a right to. I'm not saying she doesn't have a right to cry out if that. But when you present yourself constantly within that ambit, and then you didn't cry to the public as at that time, you now wake up to start crying. I will not take you serious. I wouldn't take you serious.
All right, now we're pressed for time. We're pressed for time in just less than 1 minute. In 30 seconds, what do you think needs to be done going forward when it comes to punitive measures for those who are offenders of this particular crime?
On both men and women, because there are also cases when women abuse men. It doesn't come up. So the law, I don't know I don't look. I mean, of course, it takes a lot to prove such thing. Even to prove rape, it's even to prove rape is even a difficult thing. But the law should be made simpler to prove it. You just have evidence, a phone conversation, a telephone recording, or whatever. So if you have those, and then you can afford to prove it, then the law should take its full course,
All
because
right.
I cannot tolerate such actions.
Thank you so much, Mr. Alexa. Now let's go to Mr. Matthew. Let's get your final thoughts as we coast home.
Okay, the point is, it depends on where it depends on where it happens. I think in every state of the federation, including FCC, they have laws regarding yes, regarding sexual harassment, abuse, rape, and all that. Nobody has been seen in such of a court. But the point is, anywhere happens, once the case gets to court and the court makes a pronouncement, I think we already have sufficient laws to deal with them. What perhaps is lacking is the inability of victims to gather evidence to prosecute such things. That is the reason I advocated that there's every need to install CCTV in places, public offices. And this is the best work practice. It is not just because you want to regulate anybody's conduct. Nobody regulates anybody's conduct. That is why in Nigeria, a policeman will be on duty. You want to put him on camera, he will threaten you, you want to seize your phone. I don't see anything wrong in getting somebody on camera if the person knows doing the right thing. Of course, I think when somebody has guilty conscience, that's where the person will be saying that there is no point covering people while they are engaging in lawful activities. We saw what transpired between Zelensky and Trump the other day. The whole world is watching it. If it was not on camera, how would you watch it? So for me, I think the best thing to do is to install this camera in places to get people do the right thing.
Thank you so much, Mr. Matthew Oloko, Social Affairs Analyst, for coming on the show. We really appreciate your time.
Thank you for having me.
All right. Equally, we also want to thank Mr. Alexa Wilcox, Public Affairs Analyst. Thank you so much for joining us on the show.
Thank you for having me, and God bless you all.
All right, now we'll be coasting home, but not right about now, as we will be handing you over to our Benin network for the rest of the program.